Good morning, everyone. Thank you today for joining us for our first Lunch on Veritas webinar. Today's topic is around Veritas SaaS Backup protection for the cloud. As we're learning to adapt to this new world of social isolating and remote working, the challenges of these changes and how to secure and protect data are becoming increasingly important. So today, Ranger and myself will take you through why you need to consider data protection for your SaaS backup applications, and a quick demo of how easy it can be to set this up with Veritas SaaS Backup. So look, even before the current global pandemic and social isolating measures, SaaS services like Microsoft Office 365, Salesforce.com, even things like Dynamics 365 are having a stunning uptake, especially over the last 5 years. As you can see here, some of the recent stats are that there's over 200 million active seats globally in Office 365 itself. Now, in early March, Microsoft released some stats saying that with the work from home and the pandemic, Teams Chat, for instance, the Teams Chat and conferencing application gained more than 12 million daily users just in 1 week. And that's been increasing rapidly since. So, while Office 365 is fast becoming the center of business productivity for many organizations, the assumptions are that SaaS providers also provide backup. Sadly, this is not the case. And what we're seeing, from many of the analyst reports, are that on average, 75% of the seats in SaaS applications or the users in app organizations and SaaS applications are not being protected by any sort of additional backup outside of the mechanisms, the availability mechanisms that are provided by those SaaS providers. So, why backup a SaaS application? Oops, sorry, I forgot to put a poll up actually. So we do a poll just asking you around, are your organizations today using SaaS applications or intending to in the near future? Not sure how long to wait for the poll. All right, let me keep going. So, why backup a SaaS application? The misunderstanding of, what data protection or what data ownership lies between what the SaaS provider's perceived responsibilities are and what users actually, need to be responsible for around the protection and long-term retention of their data. Most SaaS providers like Microsoft Office 365, they offer geo-redundancy, they have multiple copies of your data across, multiple data centers, and, really what they're trying to protect for is uptime. Some of them do have some options for what I would call, pseudo backups, but the reality is, that redundancy, the availability, really is as far as those SaaS providers will go in terms of responsibility for your data. And you'll see that most of the SaaS providers in their service agreements will have a clause there which effectively says that they are not ultimately responsible for your data, and your data, is obligations for yourselves as organizations to be responsible for your own data. So, if you look at Section 1D of the Microsoft Online Subscription Agreement, they say there, you're solely responsible for the content of all your own data, and Microsoft does not and will not assume any responsibilities or obligations around that. If you look at Salesforce.com, so up till recently, Salesforce.com did offer a service for data recovery. It was a paid-for service, but again, look, they've had a lot of challenges with that, and hence they're now retiring that, and you'll see that they now direct customers to look at some of their third-party partners who provide data backup for Salesforce. So if I now look at, what is recovery and what's retention, policies, for instance, in the SaaS backup application services. So, Microsoft Office 365, for instance, does have some solutions that, you could potentially see as backups. One thing a lot of customers do look at is retention policies. Now, look, Microsoft are quite clear about what retention policies are. They are for compliance and content management. So it's all around, how do you comply with industry regulations to keep certain data for a period of time, and, litigations, e-discovery, and just managing the age and, of that data. So it's around compliance and content management. The data's protected from being deleted, but it's not really protected as being a backup. Now, we also see there are other solutions that Microsoft also offer. If I look at the Office 365 in particular, they do have now some mechanisms for OneDrive files restore, for instance, to help with ransomware. But again, there are caveats and limitations to those solutions. So, you've got to be very careful about understanding what they provide and, what the expectations are on recovery capabilities. And some of the tools that they provide, such as legal hold, for instance, are actually quite time-consuming to recover from. So they're not a simple process of recovery if you do need to get data back, assuming the data is actually available. So, if we get into more details around this, so Office 365, for instance, it doesn't really achieve what we call a 3-2-1 backup strategy. Now, what is a 3-2-1 backup strategy? It's a general rule, good practice, that you have 3 copies of your data, that you store 2 copies in a different storage media, and one of those copies should be in an off-site location. So, yes, the Office 365 resiliency, for instance, or a lot of the SaaS providers have a multi-data center resiliency, where you might have multiple copies of your data across, say, 2 data centers, but they're not necessarily on a independent storage media. So a lot of them are on replicated storage. So if you get a corruption on one site, it might get corrupted in the other site, and you don't really have that true off-site backup copy that you can recover from. That limits, again, it comes back to what the issues are. I think a lot of the data that we see that issues are around users still deleting data or accidental deletion, but ransomware, malware, that's creeping up in the scheme of things of what we're seeing in the market today around problems that people have with their data. So, being able to recover data that's been encrypted and corrupted is quite important. If you look at, Microsoft Office has some guidelines around how do you recover from a ransomware attack, for instance, in Office 365. You'll find the very first step that they put in their documentation, their knowledge base article, is to verify your backups. So they start with offline backups, and then they go into potential options for how you might recover, OneDrive with OneDrive files restore, etc. So, it is important to consider, you're having a standalone, capable backup solution for your SaaS applications. So I'm leading into, what Veritas offers today. So Veritas SaaS Backup is one of the most comprehensive SaaS protection solutions in the market. So this slide here, not going into any great detail, but really just is to show you the depth of granularity we go into for Office 365, all the levels of data collections and objects that we can protect and recover. But also on top of that, if your organizations are using G Suite, Google Suite, as your productivity suite, or Microsoft Dynamics 365 or Salesforce.com, we have the capability to back up, restore that data as well. So, what is some of our key features that Ranga will show you in a few minutes. So, look, the features around Veritas SaaS Backup, it's simple management. The idea is, it's got to be as simple as possible, quick to get configured. We've got multiple restore options, so you can either restore back to the original location, or you can actually extract the files to be restored. And that could be important if someone's left the organization and you need to restore their data for somebody else to access. You can download that data, or you can push it back to somebody else's mailbox, for instance. And it just allows, there's a lot of security granularity around limiting access to restore files, how the communications are secured, how you add and remove users, and that can be done automatically through groups and synchronization of Active Directory. And there's a lot of great search functionalities in there as well. So you can do granular searches on keywords, dates and time, etc. So it's pretty easy to get protected. It's nothing to set up. It's hosted by Veritas, so we have an instance here in Australia. It's one of our 3 global instances. They're hosted in Sydney. The backup data is actually, there's 4 copies of the backup data spread across 2 data centers. So not only do you get the availability from your SaaS provider, you're getting the availability from your backup provider as well. There's no setup cost. It's secured, and it's on a subscription user license. It's aligned to each of the 4 SaaS vendors. So, it's pretty straightforward in terms of how you get it up and running. The other great thing is we provide unlimited storage for the backups and unlimited retention for those backups. Now, I also might have missed another poll earlier, so I might just also get that second poll run as well. So the second poll that we had was around, do you have a backup solution today for your Office 365 or G Suite applications, for instance? All right, I'll move on. So, look, getting set up with a trial for SaaS Backup, I'm going to walk you through the 2 slides it takes to get set up. This literally takes, I've done it myself a couple of times, as have many in my team. It takes a couple of minutes to get registered, to get activated. And then Ranga is going to take you through some of the user interface of our SaaS Backup application, just how easy it is to get it connected to one of the 4, to Office 365, for instance, and then, just doing some restores, searches, etc. So first step to getting a trial set up, go to the veritas.com website, go to SaaS Backup, and just fill in the form. You'll get an activation email sent to you. Click on the link. That will then ask you to input a password for your admin account for the portal. And then from there, you're pretty much set up and ready to go. So I'm going to now hand over to Ranga, and he's going to run through, actually just getting configured and some of the functions you might want to perform in our SaaS Backup tool.
Thanks, Jason. Hello, and welcome to the demo of Veritas SaaS Backup. Jason has already shown you how to register for a trial of Veritas SaaS Backup. Use the link received on your email to log into the portal and make sure you set your own password. And once you set the password, you're ready to go. As simple as that gets. Now, today in our VS Board demo, we are going to cover these aspects. So let's get straight into the demo mode. So here is the demo portal. So the first time you log on, this would be a blank screen. And then you are ready to add your connector here. So make sure you add your users, so create as many users as you need. And then once you add the user, you can straight away get into adding the connector. So there are many connectors that we support here. So select the connector that you want to associate it to. So select Office 365 admin and provide the credentials. Note that you need enterprise admin credentials to add the connector. Once you add the connector, the backup gets scheduled like so. It's automatically scheduled, 2 backups a day that it automatically runs. So once it runs, you see backups getting completed like that. The backups are starting to run, and you can view the jobs by going into the job monitor, whatever jobs historically, how many of the backups that have been run in a historic methodology, so you can go look for those information. Also, once you get into the connector, so it's very easy to add a connector, as I said. Get the connector added, and the backup gets scheduled straight away. Now, what do you actually do in the connector? So pretty much once you define the credentials, the next is you will be led to this screen to identify what workloads that you want to select. So typically, it depends on the organization type and who manages it. So maybe there could be more than one connector created, and each connector could be backing up different stuff. For example, you could be configuring SharePoint and public folders in one connector, OneDrive and Mail in a separate connector, and so on. So, and then you can either select users or groups. Ideally, you would want to select groups. So identify the users and then select the groups that you need to enable this particular option to, and then define the retention. VSB provides unlimited retention, but you can also specify a particular retention for your connector. Depends on your requirements. And then you can also provide access, role-based access as to who gets access to this particular connector. Now, once the backup completes, you would be seeing, based on the workloads that you've selected for the connector, you would see all the workloads that are protected. Now I can get in and I can do a restore like so. It will do an in-place restore straight away. Or I can download to my local laptop. Or I can share as a link with a expiration time and also additional security by providing a password there, and then share it with the intended user. Or I can dig into those folders and go to a specific location and then restore for information. So what I can do is I can go look for searches. So make sure you have enabled subfolder search on, and then I can search multiple things. So for instance, I'm looking for something called as a weekly digest. And then hitting enter, I find a lot of email. So what I've done for the simplicity of the demo and in the interest of time, I have restored the data. So what I did was I initiated a restore of one of the latest email that is for that particular date and time stamp. So I have initiated a restore. When I initiated a restore, it said that a restore was initiated, and then once the restore completed, VSB sends an email saying that the restore was completed, and all I did was I restored that particular email. So I deleted this email, and I restored from here. And everything gets logged. So it logs as an auditing functionality, especially for role-based access. You need to know who did what. How did they enter? What did they do? So you get to see everything in terms of auditing. And similarly, I can go back to connectors and I can look for something called as job monitor. So I can go view what jobs have been run in the environment. So let me go to the connector and show you that. So this is the job, restore job that I did. And I can do, what did I restore? So I restored a file to OneDrive. I restored an email back to the environment. So I can do as many restores as I need, and it directly goes back into that particular environment. So the other things that you can do here is single sign-on functionality. So what I've done is I've also configured an SSO. I set up an application for SSO, and then I have configured whatever ID is the SAML ID, and then the additional requirements for SSO. I've set it up here. So once I get that particular information, I can associate this as a functionality. So which means I can run an SSO to a specific application. Additionally, what VSB also provides is a way to use the API. So we publish our API. So if you have a remote management and monitoring tool, you can use it for aggregating it. So using your own API to your own RMM tool, you can use them as well. Additionally, if I go back to my connectors, I can also get something called as import the data, which means I can import from one user to another. Example, a manager has quit and a new user has replaced that particular user. Now, I can get specific information about the retired user into the new user's mailbox, so I can restore it on top of it. So I get multiple different options to restore the information from a specific snapshot and from a specific connector. Now, this is what you get to restore within that specific connector. What if I want to go view historical snapshots and restore from it? Then I can go there, look for historical snapshots, select a particular snapshot from a particular time frame, and then that's the backup from that day, and I can restore it a specific level. Okay, searches are great. You can search. In this instance, I'm searching multiple different locations that contains recruitment, and I get results from Teams and chats. I get results from OneDrive. I get results from SharePoint. So depending on the type where the data is, I can look for information and I can restore. That's a simple demo in a nutshell of Veritas SaaS Backup. End of the day, you get the powerful features by not installing anything on your on-premises. There is no need for any storage, no need for any hardware, no need for any on-prem software. Everything is software as a service that sets up very quickly, easily, and you straight away the backup gets scheduled and run. So see on the other side for more questions. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ranga. And look, apologies, I've just been looking at some of the questions while Ranga was taking us through that. It sounds like there's some audio issues on my end, possibly. So apologies there. We will send out the slides afterwards or make them available. So, you know, don't worry if you missed anything there. So look, we'll get into answering any of the technical questions at the end of this, but just to wrap up here, you know, as shown before, it's pretty easy to get on. Try to get 25 users, I think, set up on a demo for a period of time, and you can log in there, you know, go to the website and get yourself registered. There's also some contact details here. You can reach out to us, the team here at Veritas ANZ. More than happy to answer any questions or walk you through any additional insights that you might have around backing up and protecting SaaS solutions or any other solutions. And for those of you, obviously, who've dialed in today, you know, lunch is on us. So, you know, if you've opted in for today's special offer, we'll send out an email in the next 24 hours with an activation link that you can download your Uber Eats e-gift card. So enjoy lunch on us. So we'll move on to questions now. So just going through some of those questions. Yep, I know a lot of you have said that you can't hear me very clearly.
I have one question there. Does it take long for data to be secure after it's been set up? Now, the data is secure in the sense during transit and also after storing the data. So it is encrypted while it transit and also while storing the data. So if there is 10 terabytes of data, so while it is transiting, it is encrypted, and then after it gets stored, it is stored in a secure format.
Thanks, Ranga. So I have a question around what parts of Dynamics can be backed up. So look, we cover off all the standard and custom entities in Microsoft Dynamics. So entities around accounts, sales, customer service, etc. They are basically included in the backups for our Dynamics backup, Office Dynamics 365 backup. So there's a question also around the restore granularity for Dynamics. So I don't know, Ranga, have you got details on the level of granularity? I believe we can restore individual records, but
we definitely can. Thanks for the question. Only thing is, I'm looking for what you want to restore. What are you trying to restore it? So if you can post that question into the email that Jason popped up earlier, so I'll be glad to answer that, and I can give you more details. So definitely possible. Just at what exactly you're trying to restore. Based on that, we can definitely come back to you and tell you what granularity you're looking at and what needs to be restored.
Yeah.
The other question that I have is the time for initial sync a good estimate for a full restore? Now, initial sync depends on how large your environment is. So after the first backup is done, so yes, you will be able to do full restore, not sure. You will be able to do the complete restore, and subsequently it is incrementals, all the changes that gets protected.
Yeah, similar question around transfer via Veritas links into the SaaS vendor. Actually, that's a good point really to bring up is one of the things here is when you're backing up into Veritas SaaS Backup, the backup is directly from the cloud SaaS vendor, so say Microsoft Office 365 data centers across into the Veritas backup data center. So it doesn't have to go down into your data center. It's across the direct links. Look, in terms of there's no cost for that data transfer unless your SaaS vendor has data costs. And as far as I know, definitely Office 365 doesn't charge for any data out charges, and we don't charge for any data transfer charges either. Now, in terms of limits and speed, look at it's whatever the limits are in terms of obviously Office 365 is generally on a shared bandwidth connection. We've also got very large links into our backups as well. So there may be some congestion at times depending on how many users are accessing that, but from what we've seen to date, it runs pretty well.
Right, and then I have a follow-up question. Can the backup protect the SaaS applications to on-prem? Answer is no. So this is purely a hosted environment. The idea is simplicity, quick to set up, and then quick turnaround for backup. So this is a hosted solution, not supported for on-prem. So you're looking for, we have other functionalities where we can support on-prem infrastructure. So definitely talk to us for more information.
Yeah, and look, I think the question, in terms of backing up those SaaS applications on-premise, I guess one of the reasons we went down the hosted path is the fact that there's a reason you're paying for a hosted SaaS application. It's because most organizations now want to get out of their data centers. So, having a hosted backup application for those SaaS solutions, in my view, makes sense. There are some organizations that do, want to have a local copy of that data. Obviously, our solution today for at least Office 365 and Salesforce, etc., is targeted to be in that Veritas hosted backup space. But we have abilities to export that data as well, and you can, within the SaaS Backup, download individual items or download an entire user's, mailbox, for instance. If you need to have a local offline copy, obviously, that does take time and take bandwidth. But if you need a copy just for someone who's left and you want to keep a local copy, you can do that as well. Although again, we don't delete those inactive users until you request that data gets removed from backups. So it's kept for as long as the retention period is set for.
All right, so moving on. What's the maximum retention period for the data? Yes, this has been answered before. Just reiterating, it's unlimited retention, unlimited storage. Having said that, for certain types of workloads or certain groups of users, you might want to restrict the retention periods. 100% supported. So in the connector, when you set up the connector, you can specify how long you want to retain a specific type of data for that specific connector. Default is unlimited.
Yeah. Hey, look, I know we're at the half hour. In fact, we've gone past the half hour, and we've got a heap more questions in the questions list. What we're going to do, we're going to capture those questions, and we're going to get back to you individually. I believe we've got all your contact details when you've registered. So if you've asked questions, and I literally am counting at least 15 more to answer. Please don't worry. We will get back to you in the next few days, and we'll have answers to your questions for you. So with that, look, we're going to wrap up today. Thank you very much for your attendance and your time. Enjoy the lunch on us, and we'll look to hopefully bring some more of these to you in the near future.
Absolutely. Thanks very much. Thanks for attending.